It's toy review time again, and once again we are delving into model kits. And for a guy who says he doesn't do a lot of models, I seem to have quite a few of them now. This one, coming from Takara Tomy and Kotobukiya, is the Zoids high-end Master Model 022 1/72nd scale full action plastic kit RZ-041 Liger 0. The question you are probably asking is, why am I staring at a picture on the box when TJ has said in the past he hates talking about the boxes during reviews because it's absolutely pointless? It is because I have to show you something that is not the finished model kit, because for this one I won't be demonstrating the assembly. Why, you ask? Because this model is absolutely gigantic. I don't build models very often, and this is by far the biggest one I have ever owned. By my count, and I can neither confirm nor deny that this is an accurate count, there's over 350 pieces here. I mean, I can't even get all of it in one shot. So, really, yeah, I don't even know if I have a memory card that's capable of filming the entire assembly process. I know it's going to take me more than one sitting, both of which pretty much makes recording the assembly out of the question. Overall, the building process was a lot of fun, and honestly, I have a lot more fun when I don't have to keep them on a table in frame all the time. It took about 7 hours across 3 different sittings, by far the most time-consuming model kit I've ever constructed. So let's not waste any more time, and I'll show you exactly what I got for my 7 hours of work. I think that was time very well spent, don't you? It's an absolutely beautiful representation of the Liger Zero from the Zoids anime. Tons of detail, tons of color to it, despite the white armor. That's one thing I really loved about this model kit. Everything that could be done with individual pieces of plastic was done with individual pieces of plastic, even some that were painted beforehand. Details I'll point out in a bit. Before I continue, a little bit about the assembly. While, yes, I did have a really good time building this toy, there were a few issues, especially the legs. All 4 legs are pretty much built the exact same way. So, around the midpoint, assembling this model kit does get a little bit repetitive. That's usually where you want to take one of your breaks before you start throwing things against the wall. Also, because there are so many parts going into this and you end up building a lot of little gimmicks, some you don't even realize what they are, you really want to keep track of every little thing that you've done, or at least where all the little gimmicky sliding joints are, so you don't end up pulling on things that aren't supposed to be pulled on later on when the whole thing is built. Also, keep a little bit of glue on hand, because there is one step during assembly that does call for glue, and I was not prepared for it, unfortunately. So that was kind of a downer. As a result, one of the little gimmick points in him is not quite as sturdy as it's supposed to be. It shouldn't hurt it as long as I don't play with it too roughly. But there are a few points on this toy that could have benefited from some glue to hold things together better. Just an advisement. Keep model glue handy. But that aside, let's take a look at some of this toy, because it is an absolutely glorious piece of plastic. Starting at the head, look how fierce that is. I freaking love the design on the Liger Zero to begin with. A little bit of gimmick for you. The jaw does open. You can see the tongue is molded in, or I guess what equates to a tongue anyway. All the teeth are actually quite sharp, so don't keep anything between those jaws when they close down. One thing I love, the canopy does open, and inside, look at that. Tiny little, very well painted for its size, bit cloud. Oh, so micro. That would probably fit in some of your old Transformers that were originally from Diaclone lines. Incredibly tiny. Actually, I have to go try that later now that I think of it. Moving on, we'll look at the legs. You can see some of the pre-painted details, these pistons in the legs, which you can also see a few on the sides here. There's also a little bit of piping detail molded in. All very nice. Gold paws. individual parts just so they can make sure the claws were the right metal shade. I love that. Absolutely love that. You can see the gun on the bottom. I'll go ahead and show you that it does move up and down a little bit, but it's ball jointed so it can move all around. Lots of adjusting for shooting everything in the vicinity. That's always a nice thing to have, isn't it? Toward the midsection, I'll show you a lot of the details molded into the legs, all the way up to the top. A lot of intricate, interwoven layers of detail, which is one thing that really stood out to me as I was building this. Pretty much every part you assemble has some type of interesting mechanical molding to it, even parts that you barely see. So the end result is an incredibly complex array of panels, lines, wires, pipes, tubings, all sorts of things to create one metal masterpiece. A little bit of color difference in some of the actually I'm not sure what you call that, but it's a little bit of different color variance. Just a few brown parts here and there, all the way through. And there's the tail, which I'll go ahead and demonstrate something really cool. This is all pegged together, so you actually have a lot of little swivel points, as well as some actual hinges that have kind of a locking to them so they stay in position. Tons of articulation in the tail for anything you would need for it. And there's a gun on the end, because why not? More guns. Always need more guns. Needless to say, all the color, the variants, absolutely gorgeous. I mean, like even a little bit of translucent orange in there, which might be hard to see. It's in the eyes though. Really like it in the eyes. Tons of it. Like I said, if it could be done with molded parts, they did it with molded parts, and it's an absolute wonder. Articulation-wise, now, I'm not going to be doing any rotation shots or big and action shots because it's not designed to have the same tolerances as a toy that's screwed together. So I'm just going to demonstrate a few points here. The legs especially are, of course, the most important part on this toy. Now, you've got the shoulder movement, and I guess the hip movement as well, since this is a four-arm animal. Moving outward on the front legs do move outward as such, so you can have some splayed out poses if you should want them. I'm not sure what to call these. I mean, okay, I'm going to call them elbows for lack of better biological terminology. And you do have ball joints on the paws as well. Tons of articulation there. And something I really like, in case you need it, the armor on the shoulder actually has independent articulation from the rest of the leg. Same's true about the armor back here, too. It's actually a really interesting touch. There's actually a ball joint holding it on here, too, and an extra hinge, so it seems like the armor should also be able to fold out, but the way it's assembled doesn't quite like doing it. So I'm not going to tempt fate on this one. I'll also show you, yep, all that moves as well. The knees, both knees, they do have plenty of range of motion, so you can get lots of nice action shots out of him. Lots of nice poses. Please move back. There we go. Tons of articulation, and some that I didn't expect. For instance, waist. No rotation, of course, but you can move it left and right, so he does have a more natural stance to him in most poses. As well as the neck, which does have a ball joint to it, so you can get a little bit of rotation, should you need it, but it does move up and down. Depending on what you need it for, it can do it. Lots of range and motion in there. There's a lot of little gimmicks in him, too. That's what really impressed me the most. I mean, aside from the pilot, which is removable, by the way, little things like this. The Zoid core. You actually build his Zoid core. It is fully removable, as you can see. Tiny little orange piece you pegged in. Very impressive, because that's a detail that you really didn't need to do, but they went ahead and did it anyway, and I really like that. Also, let's see, you know what? All the gimmicks really kind of relate to each other in a way. For instance, here, in the middle of the body, there is a joint that can actually extend Liger Zero outward a little bit, There's also sliding joints in these parts of the legs. I guess the forearms and between the two knees. Now, I'll be honest with you, I'm not quite sure if that's to make room for different armor components that otherwise wouldn't have enough room to attach, or if it's just there if you need a little bit of extra length in the legs for a certain pose. Either way, it's there, and if you need it, you've got it, which is great. More importantly is what a lot of the little gimmicks lead up to, which is, of course, the Liger Zero's signature weapon, the Strike Laser Claw. Let's go ahead and get that working. The first thing we're going to do is pull out these motors, engine thrusters, rather. Now, it's a little hard to do and demonstrate, but they are completely hinged together, so they kind of auto-open all on their own. And you, of course, put the detail on the inside as well. Lots of nice little touches. So much depth of detail in this, and you really appreciate it more because you built all of it yourself. Something else that you built yourself is going to be the wings, which can not only fold down, but deploy sideways. That's a gimmick you build all by yourself. I love these gimmicked model kits that actually give you the ability to build these gimmicks. It really gives you an appreciation and lets you know how they work so you don't break them later. I like that too, not breaking my toys because I don't know how they work. The side main is a little tricky to get out because there's so much armor in the way, so that, I don't know, maybe a point off for that. You can get them out though. And of course the top of the main rolls down too. The bottom one rotates down too, so all set. Boosters up, wings out. Ready to strike down anything. I love all the little touches like that. I love how much of it you built yourself. I mean, really, there's no shortcuts here. You did it all from the ground up. And it's all the more satisfying to see it happen. Now, there's also something about the marketing I love about this toy. Weird, I know. I don't normally talk about that kind of thing. However, in this case, it is special because the way you assemble this toy is actually very special. Most of the white armor can be removed, and that's important because in the anime, the Liger Zero had numerous different armor forms. The Liger Zero Schneider, Jaeger, and Panzer. All different types of equipment depending on what the Liger Zero needed to do in combat at the time. And you always got to see little scenes where the Liger Zero swapped out one set of weaponry for another. Made it quite cool. Now, the way this works, however, if you like one particular type of Liger Zero more than another, you can go ahead and buy one model kit that happens to have that particular set of armor to it. But if you don't want to go through the expense of 4 different armor sets to have the entire Liger Zero, you can go ahead and buy individual armor sets to swap onto your standard Liger Zero. It's actually really thoughtful when a lot of other toy companies would probably make you buy the model 4 times over just to get the Liger Zero in all 4 forms. So I really have to give my approval to Kotobukiya here. It's really a collector-friendly way of doing things, which you don't often see. Obviously, I'm trying to be very careful taking off the armor. I do want to show you what it looks like stripped down, so jump cut. And there we are, a naked Liger Zero. Now, there's a few reasons I wanted to do this, the main one being I wanted to show you all of the extra detail underneath the armor that didn't really come out before. Just to show you that how much work went into molding every single part of this toy to really look special, to really emphasize what a machine you were building. This is what made assembling it so much fun. It felt like a really sturdy beast of a robot. The other reason I did this, aside from just, demonstrating that you could, for putting on the extra armor, I wanted to do something a little bit special for this one. You see, to this point, I have demonstrated how this toy looks right out of the box. I mean, take the parts out of the box, put it together, and start goofing with it. That's exactly what you've gotten so far. I haven't even put the decals on it yet. But there's so much that this one can do, and the instructions actually give you a color guide for painting this guy up correctly, because there's a lot of parts here that really need to be done in other colors. Like the pistons here are supposed to have silver in them. You can paint the claws and the teeth to match the rest of the gold on him. A lot of little things like that. Things that are best done during assembly when there aren't so many parts in the way. However, I am fairly terrible at painting models, so I've chosen not to do this. But what I am going to try out is this. This is a Gundam marker, specifically one designed for panel lining, with the tiniest, finest point on any marking item I have ever seen in my life. Itty bitty teeny weeny to get into all those little crevices molded in. So I wanted to see that while I can't bring out its full glory of full paint, I might be able to make it look a little bit more awesome with something as simple as this. Let's see. Now, I fully admit, this is an amateur panel lining job at best, but even an amateur panel lining job brings out a ton of detail in this toy and really gives it an extra bit of life that bright white armor really needed. It looks fantastic, and I can only imagine what a skilled model painter would be able to do with this thing. Basically, if you're spending the money to pick up this model, you might as well drop a little bit extra to pick up a Gundam marker too. They're pretty cheap, they're usually sold wherever this model's sold, and it brings out so much more in a figure for minimal price and minimal work. This took less than an hour to do. And speaking of, as usual, this one came from Hobby Link Japan. They do sell Gundam markers there. And just in case this is sold out by the time you see this review, they also sell a bunch of the other versions of this model in all the different flavors that the Liger Zero comes in. So I'm sure there's still one or two floating around, even if this video gets really old. Overall, I feel it's a very worthwhile purchase for a model builder. I mean, as an amateur builder, this was a daunting task, but not a unsettling one. I had a lot of fun doing it. And it wasn't so hard that it's put me off from ever getting a set like this again. In fact, I don't think I'd mind doing this again. It was something a little bit more robotic looking. A lot of you are already reading into that. It's just words. Don't pay any attention.